When I first met Alyssa, it felt like the world had finally made sense. We were 19, two kids pretending to be adults in a small college town where dreams were big and reality hadn't hit yet. She had that kind of laugh that made you forget your name for a second, sharp, unfiltered, real. I was drawn to her like a moth to flame, and back then I didn't care if I got burned out. We fell fast. Those first few months were a blur of midnight drives, cheap pizza, and whispered promises under the stars. She used to say I made her feel safe, like the chaos of her world couldn't touch her when we were together. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just hold her tighter, as if that was enough to keep everything bad away. I thought love was about holding on, about giving everything even when you had nothing. And I gave her everything. My time, my attention, my heart. All of it wrapped up in this belief that if I just loved her hard enough, nothing could go wrong. But cracks began to show, small ones at first. She'd get distant, lost in her own head, or snap over little things. I'd brush it off, blame it on stress or the fact that we were both young and figuring life out. Still, sometimes I caught her staring out the window like she was somewhere else, someone else. There was this one night, I still think about it. We were at a party, music loud, room spinning with lights and people. I found her talking to a guy I didn't recognize, laughing in that same unfiltered way that used to belong to me. When I walked up, her smile flickered just for a second. It wasn't what she said that stuck with me. It was what she didn't say. We walked home in silence, her hand loosely in mine. And for the first time I felt alone with her. Looking back, I can't even say when things started to change. Love doesn't fall apart in a single moment. It erodes slowly, quietly. But I felt it. The weight of something unspoken pressing down on us, and me pretending I didn't notice. I wanted to believe we were just going through a phase. That the girl who used to fall asleep on my chest, tracing invisible patterns on my skin, was still there. But deep down I knew, still I stayed. Because I was young and in love and terrified of what it meant if we weren't forever. That I didn't know it then, but love isn't enough when you don't love yourself. And that truth was coming for me. At first, I blamed the distance on life. Classes got harder, work shifts ran longer, and we stopped finding time for each other. Or maybe we stopped trying. I'd come home to find Alyssa already asleep, curled away from me, her phone clutched tightly in her hand like it held more comfort than I ever could. She smiled less. Her laughter, once effortless and infectious, became rare, a strained sound, forced and hollow. And when I asked if everything was okay, she brushed me off with a quick, "Just tired." Or, "You're overthinking again." Maybe I was. Or maybe I just didn't want to see what was right in front of me. The first Betrayal sign came on a Tuesday. I remember because it rained hard that morning, and she left the house dressed up more than usual. Her perfume lingered long after she'd gone. Sweet, floral, unfamiliar. I thought about texting her, asking where she was going, but something held me back. Fear maybe. Or denial. They feel the same when your gut tells you the truth your heart refuses to hear. That night, she came home late, eyes bright, cheeks flushed. She kissed me, quick and distracted, then went straight to the shower. I sat alone at the table, her untouched dinner going cold, and tried to convince myself it didn't mean anything. But the lies kept piling up. Small inconsistencies, things that didn't add up. Weekend study groups she never mentioned before. A new password on her phone. Conversations she'd lower her voice for when I walked into the room. I wasn't stupid. I just didn't want to admit that the girl I'd given everything to had already started giving herself to someone else. One night I couldn't take it anymore. I waited until she was asleep and checked her phone. I didn't know what I was looking for, proof maybe. Closure. The truth, cruel and unfiltered, stared back at me in the form of messages. Late night rendezvous, inside jokes I wasn't a part of. "I miss you" text sent to someone who wasn't me. My hands shook. Not from rage but from heartbreak. There it was. The betrayal I had feared. Carved in glowing letters across the screen I had once trusted her to guard. I didn't wake her. I couldn't. I just sat in the dark, staring at her sleeping face, wondering how we got here. Wondering how love could unravel so quietly, so completely. To end that moment, I felt something inside me shift. A part of me, naive, hopeful, died, and in its place grew something colder, harder. Not hate. Not yet. Just the first seed of realization that I wish I had walked away right then, but I didn't. I stayed. And that was the real betrayal. I wish I could say I confronted her with fire in my chest, words sharp and clear like justice. But it wasn't like that. It was quiet, too quiet, The kind of calm that comes before something breaks. I waited until morning. Alyssa sat at the kitchen table sipping coffee, scrolling on her phone like the world hadn't shifted beneath us. I watched her for a moment, memorizing the curve of her smile, the way the light caught her hair. I wanted to hold on to who I thought she was, even if it was a lie. "You seeing someone else?" My voice came out flat, even. No anger. No accusation. Just a question I already knew the answer to. Her hand froze mid-scroll, eyes flicking up to meet mine. There was a beat of silence, then another. Then she laughed, soft and disbelieving. "What? Where's this coming from?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I slid her phone across the table, screen lit, messages open. Her face changed barely, but I saw it. The flicker of fear. Then resignation. She didn't deny it. Didn't even try. Instead, she whispered, "I didn't mean for you to find out like this." That hit harder than any lie ever could. There was so much I wanted to say. To ask why. To demand an explanation that would make it all make sense. But no words came. Just silence stretching between us like a chasm we couldn't cross. "I felt lost," she said finally. "We've been distant. I thought you didn't care anymore." I stared at her, hollow. "So instead of talking to me, you found someone else?" She looked down, ashamed, or maybe just caught. "It wasn't supposed to happen. I didn't plan it." But betrayal isn't about plans. It's about choices. I stood up, chair scraping against the floor. The weight of what I had built with her, the trust, the dreams, the future we talked about, it all crumbled in that moment. And she just sat there, eyes wet, saying sorry in a way that felt too easy. I walked out. The air outside was cold, biting. Felt right. Like punishment or maybe clarity. I thought leaving would hurt more. But it didn't. What hurt was realizing I had already lost her. Long before the texts, long before that morning. I'd been holding on to something that didn't exist anymore. As I stood alone on that porch, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson, I made a promise to myself. Not to forget, not to hate, but to never let someone else's choices define my worth again. Because sometimes love doesn't end in rage or revenge. Sometimes it ends in silence, and the decision to heal. But healing? That's where the real story began. It's strange how life keeps moving even when your world has stopped. After I left Alyssa, I stayed with a friend. Slept on a worn-out couch that smelled like old coffee and cologne. It wasn't home, but it was quiet. Peaceful even. And in that stillness, I started to breathe again. The first few days were a blur. I kept replaying everything, the late nights, the messages, her eyes when she realized I knew. It looped in my head like a song I couldn't turn off. But pain has a way of sharpening you, of peeling away the layers until you're forced to face yourself. And I realized something. I had spent so much time trying to be enough for her that I forgot to be enough for myself. Alyssa reached out, of course. Texts, missed calls, apologies that felt more like band-aids than healing. She wanted to talk. To explain. Closure, she called it. But I didn't need closure. I needed distance. I needed to remember who I was before love made me forget. I started going on long walks, no destination in mind, just the rhythm of my steps and the cool air against my skin. I rediscovered old hobbies, drawing, writing, things I had let go in the chaos of trying to hold a crumbling relationship together. Slowly, the color returned to my world. Not all at once, but piece by piece. One evening, weeks later, I ran into Alyssa at a small coffee shop we used to frequent. She looked different. Or maybe I did. Our eyes met across the room, and for a moment everything paused. She gave me a soft, uncertain smile. I nodded, polite, distant. Then I turned away. There was nothing left to say. Walking out of that coffee shop, I felt something lift off my shoulders. Not revenge. Not victory. Just freedom. The kind you earn when you stop letting someone else's mistakes chain you to the past. I learned that love isn't about losing yourself in someone else. It's about growing together, building something real, something honest. And when honesty breaks, love can't survive. The experience didn't break me. Taught me. About trust. About strength. About the importance of walking away when staying means losing yourself. Now, when people ask if I regret loving her, I don't. I regret losing myself for someone who was never willing to hold me the way I held her. But love, even when it ends in pain, leaves behind lessons. And those lessons? They're the foundation for the next chapter. The one I get to write on my own terms. Because healing isn't just surviving the storm, it's learning to dance again when the rain finally stops.